You are witnessing the moment where potential becomes reality. Today, we have a very highly suggested, requested teaching that we're going to be diving deep into. It's all about gatekeepers of the time dimensions, spirit guides, archangels, how they're encoded into your field, what are they, and how can you work with them. Let's dive deep, but before we do, I do want to open up sharing with you how I knew it was time to bring forth this message, to ripple it through the cosmos to the point where it's intersected with you in this sacred well-line collision along your space-time journey, okay? Now, I had a contact experience really recently, and it essentially happened when I was drifting in between realms. I wasn't fully asleep, but I was very lucid, where I was disconnecting, from my physical body into my energy body. And I had that etheric cord, the silver cord, and I began to navigate the quantum field. And in that liminal space, I want to say between realms, in which you are also very familiar with, I was watching the field as a moment within space-time. It was a wave, and those waves that came forth actually began to self-organize themselves into a structure, into a pattern. And those waves began to take the form of eyes. The field organized into something that could not just see, but could also be seen. It was super fascinating, because as these eyes became aware, or these beings became aware that I was observing them, in that moment, everything changed, because it's almost like they looked at me and then the structure began to collapse. It actually destabilized, and I want to say dispersed back into infinite potential. In that moment, I realized that it wasn't just an experience. This was showing me how reality functions, but in order to really understand how reality functions, we must return back to the point before anything takes form. From the law of one perspective, before anything takes form, there is only consciousness. Undivided, unobserved, and infinite. Not as something that's out there, but as the total field within which all experience arises. This is what we call source. And source does not experience itself as a fixed identity. It experiences itself through differentiation, through fracturing into perspective, not into separation, but into points of awareness. Each one a way for the field to look back at itself. Because source cannot experience itself as everything without becoming something. So it observes, and in observing, it localizes. So it moves from infinite potential into a point of view or a subjective lens. For the eye cannot see itself without the aid of a mirror. And there's a really simple way to understand this, which is the double slit experiment. And I'll go ahead and explain that if it's your first time hearing about this or remembering it from the field. In the double slit experiment, light behaves like a wave until it's observed. Before observation, it exists as infinite potential. The moment it's measured, it stops behaving like a wave and it collapses into a particle, into becoming something very specific. Not because it changed, but because it was observed into form. Now, if we bring that into the concept of consciousness itself, and you as a conscious fractal of awareness, you're doing that all the time as you interact and engage with the world around you. You're observing this experience into form. When we speak about archangels, entities, or spirit guides, this is light organized into form through your awareness. So it's encoded expressions within the field that you're actually drawing from infinite potential into a coherent expression as an interface. And we're going to speak more about that, but when we dive deeper into archetypes, they don't begin when you see them, but instead they exist as a wave, as pure potential across dimensional layers of the field. And your awareness is what collapses that potential into something perceivable. What you are is not a single expression. You exist across dimensional layers as fractalized versions of yourself, not separate beings, but different organizations of the same consciousness. And each one holds a specific band of information. What you call reality is not just external. It's a holographic projection of your own DNA interfacing with the morphic field. This means that everything you see is being translated through your biology. Your DNA is not just physical, it's actually a receiver and a gateway that acts as a living interface between dimensions. So what appears outside of you is actually being rendered through you. Let's speak about your biofield, your chakra system as an interface so that this becomes embodied. Your body is not just physical, it's layered. And you exist within this 360-degree field, a membrane of perception. This is your biofield. It's also called the aura. And within this field, you have vortices, which is your chakra system. And each one is processing a different band of frequency. But these aren't just internal centers, they are portals that are then projected externally and extend far beyond your anatomical human body. You can think about them as gateways into different layers of the field where specific expressions of consciousness exist. And they're not imagined, but they're very structured and self-organized like an ecosystem. So you don't just have a root chakra, you have a root field. This holds themes of survival, grounding, and safety. A sacral field, which is governing things like exchange, emotion, connection, your relationship to things like pleasure, creation, and energetic flow. A solar field, ruling things like your power, identity, will, self-trust, and your connection to the divine within. A heart field, holding love, compassion, coherence, your ability to give, receive, and remain open in connection to your interconnectedness to all things. When you see life through the lens of the heart space, that's where you recognize everything as you and you as everything. A throat field, governing expression, truth, vibration, how you communicate and transmit your inner reality outwardly with the world around you. A third eye field, holding perception, intuition, symbolic intelligence. So it's utilizing the lens of the soul when being able to interpret synchronicities that are happening in the world around you and how you interpret what it is that you see. So it's accessing deeper layers of awareness, essentially. And then you have a crown field, which holds unity, surrender, and non-local awareness. It's your connection to source and your capacity to interface with creation itself. And beyond this, your field continues, expanding into higher dimensional layers of perception where consciousness becomes less structured and more unified. And within each of these layers, entire networks of archetypal expressions exist, not linearly, but as branching systems of fractal consciousness. When you access a chakra, you're not just feeling something, but instead you're interfacing with an entire dimensional layer of your own consciousness, as well as the beings that occupy and reside within those realms. I really want to emphasize the fact that these aren't physical fixated beings. It's a very multidimensional and fluid system, not for us to over-identify or attach to these archetypes, because it's literally a self-organized, structured pathway in which information can flow from these conduits. That's exactly what they are. If we speak about conduits, it's a wave that collapses into form, but not as a specific being, but it's actually an interface for us to be able to access the information that dwells within the realm or dimension that this being occupies. And that's how I really invite you to look at the different archetypes when we talk about spirit guides, when we talk about angels. It's a way for consciousness to actually access what is stored within that layer. All right. So I just want to say that before we move forward, because there can be so many distortions of I am this and I am this. Well, you are everything and everything is you in this one unified field of consciousness. The universe is one single being. It's one emanation, difference in only seeming, right? So you must understand that you are everything and nothing simultaneously. So can you experience yourself as everything while simultaneously existing in the void? To give you a living example of how this manifested in my own life, I'm going to share my story within the solar field and the being that occupied that realm, how infinite potential or the wave collapsed itself into form through my awareness as an interface, a deity, 𝓤𝓪𝓬𝓪, who deeply helped me integrate a lot of interdimensional aspects of myself along my own journey. This is just one example, so I'll go ahead and tell you the story. And I share a lot of this on my channel as well. I think it's in my video of I swore I would never tell anyone about this message, where I was actually channeling her as a conduit. And this will just give you an example, okay? Think of her as an archetypal expression that's encoded within that dimensional band. And she's able to streamline without distortion information that occupies the realm in which she dwells in. So an example of that would be themes that she brings forth when we speak about the solar plexus. The solar plexus is all about your identity. It's about self-trust. It's about cultivating a healthy relationship with yourself, right? Being able to trust yourself as you navigate this existence. Thus, bringing forth more confidence in your own divine essence and expression and how you move through this world. So there was a lot of those themes that were coming up for me during the time. It was, you know, things like self-trust. This is about divine authority, being able to become the author or take authorship of your own life. And that turns into embodied power, into devotion to the divine, devotion to your own truth and how you move through this existence in that divine expression, in that divine being in which you are, and being able to reconnect with yourself. It's a remembrance that you're not separate from source, but an expression of it. And so when this archetype activates, it's not about attaching to Sekhmet as an identity. It's about recognizing that she's a conduit, a pathway through which that layer of information flows as an interface through which you can access deeper aspects of your own consciousness, a solar conduit that initiates you into that frequency. And so when you're working with that emotion through activation or challenges, these archetypal expressions can arise as invitations to invite us or to initiate, maybe even confront or explore the deeper layers of ourselves. So this doesn't just show up as insight, this does show up through emotions, and utilizing the solar plexus, emotions as a very specific theme. That may be those of us who have moved through systems or experiences or sensations of betrayal. It could be lack of trust. This could be even resentment or anger when we speak about the lower densities or octave of the solar plexus. And it can be easy to locate this externally and say, well, someone else did this to me or someone else made me feel that way. But in actuality, what I've come to understand is that these emotions are portals. These emotions are invitations to invite us deeply to explore what it is that we need most in that moment and being able to become our own source of being able to provide that for ourselves. These are access points into layers of our own field where that version of ourselves already exists. It could be the parallel expression that is not just in this lifetime, but across many timelines and also interdimensional expressions where you've experienced it, you've embodied it, and you've also come out on the other side of it. And as you stay present with that emotion, instead of projecting it outwardly, you begin to access memory, and not just as a story, but this field of information, almost like a database. And these are where these archetypal expressions can come forward, not as something separate, but as a conduit that can assist you in moving through that frequency and being able to integrate those experiences. And integration is actually to heal. To heal is to become whole with that perspective. To become whole is not to see life on earth separate from the perspective of the soul. So it's being able to see these experiences from pure perspective and not distortion, which is your interconnectedness to all things. So I invite you deeply to explore what that looks like if a circumstance has been really hard to move through, or you've seen it from a lens of separation or the wound itself. How can you recognize it as another aspect of you, right? Another projection of you, because it always has been you. It's all beings emerging from this one source of information, and and we are all one. Like, we are all interacting with ourselves, and the more that we can return to that whole perspective and being able to see life through the lens of the heart chakra, through the lens of the healed self and the solar plexus, these lessons, we are no longer confused around the things that we're moving through, but instead they become valuable information to see what it is that we are inviting ourselves through another form of us to begin to explore within ourselves. And so these different archetypes can become visible within your field. Each one is holding a specific intelligence that relates to exactly what it is that you're processing. For example, in moments of deep anger or these emotions are activating within you, a solar archetypal expression may come forth from your field and introduce itself to you, not to be worshipped, but to guide you through what that frequency is asking you to embody. This could be to shift your relationship from reaction into awareness, from fragmentation and seeing yourself as separate into integration. And that's alchemy, because you're not changing the emotion, but you're transmuting and transforming your relationship to that emotion, allowing it to become a gateway into deeper layers of your own consciousness. For me, this opened up into deeper Syrian aspects, an archetypal expression tied to that frequency, and that also held those imprints and that memory within my field. And it wasn't something that was external, but it was an extension of me. And through that shift of perspective, there was a shift within me, because instead of being consumed by the emotion, I was able to move through it with this level of awareness, with access and deeper understanding. So again, these aren't beings to attach to. They are simply, I'm also hearing misidentify with. Okay, we are very quick to say, I am this and I am this. And the moment that we try to attach to, I am Sekhmet, I am Ptah, I am Isis, I am Osiris, the moment that we do that, we actually block ourselves off from infinite expressions, because we are misidentifying or localizing ourselves with one almost a limited archetype. And there are so many other beings and expressions, again, that is fluid and multidimensional, that exist within that system, that can also offer, I want to say, alternative information or insightful perspective from within those realms. And we actually block ourselves off from that information. It's so funny how the ego can do that. Anyway, I won't get deeper into that, but I'm sure we've all seen it. And maybe some of you are like, oh, that feels personal or like a blow, but it's really not. This is just truth, and it's truth without distortion. To look this in further, let's talk about archetypal ecosystems and how they self-organize themselves within the field. So a great example would be within these layers, you may begin to notice that certain archetypal expressions arise, not as fixed beings, but as forms the field takes when your awareness meets a certain frequency. So for example, in the root field, you might experience something like Michael, Archangel Michael, not something that's external, but a stabilizing conduit. It's a frequency that then takes form that supports you in seeing and alchemizing things like binding thought forms. That's what things that he's often known for. It could also be things like patterns reinforced through the lineage that's held in the body as fear that begin to shift as you bring safety back into yourself. And he's not fixed. These aren't beings assigned to specific centers. It's not that Archangel Michael is the only being that rules the root. Again, this is a very fluid and shape-shifting ecosystem where different archetypal expressions actually coexist within these realms. Again, it's a whole, I want to say, like, populated dimensional field. Okay, it has a certain population within it, and these self-organize based off of resonance. So the one that will come forth will be the one that it's in benefit for you at that stage of your evolution and the things in which the soul is moving through, and that becomes an interface, a plasma. And you guys have heard me speak about this so many times, where there are plasma beings that are sometimes incarnate into physical forms, but other times they dwell within these dimensional realms or aspects of yourself, interdimensional aspects of yourself, and they actually engage with you to assist you on your third dimensional journey, to remind you of your plasma-like state. And this intercommunication with plasma and the plasma universe that you're immersed in can dramatically, especially emotionally, shift the way that you relate to yourself or your journey on earth, usually invoking or inviting you to begin to embody or step into. I'm seeing like a whirlwind or tornado of compassion. Can you imagine if there was like beautiful chaos? Okay, I'm hearing like a beautiful chaotic system that you're immersed in. For example, if you're moving through a very specific theme or vibration or emotion at any time in your life, see what guide actually comes forth. You know, that will be how infinite potential takes form within the field, and how that frequency actually moves through you and with you as a companion along your space-time travels. All right. And I also, there's a channel message that's coming through where It's less about, okay, this is the Fool's journey through the tarot. So it's less about attaching to the people that play parts in our stories, or even the stories itself that was playing out, and more about the lesson that we're able to extract from the experience or that dynamic. And it's the exact same with spirit guides. So again, we're all plasma beings. So whether that's incarnated into a physical form that's here to assist in soul growth, or a conduit between realms, it's less about the archetype itself and more about the lesson. I'm hearing that unfolds before you, okay, the remembrance that takes place. And that's how you begin to understand how you're interfacing within your own field of experiences, not just within planet Earth, but also these other, interdimensional aspects and realms in which you dwell in. I am so excited, by the way, to be speaking about this subject matter. I know I've been saying that I was going to do this one for a while, but I just want to take a moment of gratitude and appreciation for being able to collect all these messages and actually bring them forth in a way that I trust is going to be easily digested and integrated and really remembered. Again, I'm not even telling you anything new, and that's the beauty of it. That is there's a very specific card in my Cosmos message, but it's essentially resembling the morphic field. This is where memory lives within you, and we're really just, diving deep into that. What people call demons, guides, or even entities are not separate beings from you, not in the way in which we've at least been taught to believe or to fear, but instead they're actually reinforced thought forms, patterns of energy that have been repeated, inherited, and emotionally charged, and then they organize into archetypal expressions. This is often through ancestral repetition, even collective repetition, that actually contribute towards these forms or infinite potential waves taking form. And so when these patterns are reinforced through shared thought or emotion and intention, they actually begin to stabilize into collective archetypes, shared collapses of the field that many people can access. Not independent beings, but organized fields of intelligence acting as conduits. And because they hold structure, they appear as entities. This is something that's consistent, it's recognizable. And there's another layer to this, because you're not the only one that's interfacing with this field. We're literally all doing this collectively across the universe. And within each local cluster, there are shared patterns of perception. So we have collective archetypes, not as fixed beings, but as stabilized expressions that have been repeatedly observed, felt, and reinforced over time. So they become these familiar pathways that we return to. You can think about them as shared conduits that many people access. And because they hold this energetic structure, they can then appear as entities, not because that's their fixed identity, but because that is the most coherent way for you to perceive them. It's literally the field that's self-organizing into recognizable archetypes for us to begin to work with. And this is a really fascinating topic to actually speak about further. And I'm going to use Archangel Michael as an example. So Archangel Michael rules the root field. And it's not because he rules that center, but again, these are collective timelines where we've actually stabilized that into the field through that reinforced belief system, essentially. So we're talking about collective timelines that are subject to this universe that we exist in. And this could be us working through vibrations or emotions like protection, alchemizing, binding thought forms that have kept us bound. So he represents a layer of protection where we're kind of like neutralizing our relationship with the physical material plane and remembering ourselves as a divine being in many ways. In the highest service, it's for us to feel safe, secure, and stable in our relationship with the material physical realm, because the root chakra represents all things physical and ancestral. So he helps somebody, for example, transform their relationship with fear, reminding us that we're the awareness behind the localized octave or limited octave of ourself that does the best with the level of awareness that it has. So he helps us bring safety back into the body when we're observing inherited patterns. And the further that we weave that down this construct, we see that that has been societal, it's been ancestral programming, engineering, where we have adopted a distorted relationship with the physical material plane, in which we are here and safe and stable within our body to co-create an experience, but we are not bound or limited by the physical plane. We are simply the timeless consciousness, utilizing this body as a conduit, as a vehicle to be able to explore this terrestrial plane as a being that has celestial origins. So that is a lot with of Archangel Michael's role, and I almost want to say duty, as a conduit to help us remember the information that doesn't again exist within him. He is a conduit that streamlines the information that exists within the realm that he occupies. So I want you to really understand this and remember this, and I know so many of you do, but this is just like really ingraining. And this is what I mean by collective timelines, because it's something that we have all essentially contributed towards, because we have over time actually co-created these shared pathways where we would come back or return to this archetype when we're moving through themes of fear or protection that we feel like we're needing. And really that protection is just our awareness in our interconnectedness to all things, because a lower expression of the root chakra could be judgment of ourselves or those in the world around us, that then act as a filter of separation instead of tuning into our interconnectedness to all things. And this is where consciousness learns to move or self-organize itself in this fluid ecosystem, because this would explain reasons why we feel really guided by or connected to a very specific spirit guide or archangel or entity or deity at a particular time in our journey or our life. But then we also may evolve into different archetypal expressions that will self-organize and begin to emerge depending on the frequency that we're moving through. So often they'll evolve as we also evolve our perspective. So that kind of explains that whole fluid journey. And it's something that you're interfacing with that exists within your own field already. So it's literally designed to assist you at that stage of your journey, okay? And it's this living, evolving network of this shared consciousness. And we also move through this collectively too. So that could even be themes of like Mary Magdalene, Yeshua. We're not going to get so much into that, but these are like prominent distinctions within the field. To put it quite simply, this is just the one consciousness that is experiencing itself through infinite expressions, and you're interacting with yourself as everything and everything as you. And this is higher archetypal manifestations that are assisting you in the realm in which you're dwelling in. And Earth is often a very, not often, it is one of the most densest planes that you can incarnate into. I'm gonna pull a card here, but I do actually want to bring up Archangel Michael just as an example, because he's actually in this deck. So we have Falls of Learning that showed up too. But this is the wave becoming aware of itself, right? You are aware that you are all things and all things are you. In this deck, just give me a moment because I do want to talk about this. I believe he is here, right? So Archangel Michael is a divine protection, cutting cords, and a breakthrough energy. And this literally speaks about... So swords, if we think about swords as well, right? Swords are truth. They are also clarity. So what actually cuts the binding thought forms is alchemizing them. The way that we alchemize something is to transform our relationship to this. So fear, we say, okay, that's something ancestrally that's resurfacing itself as a fractal expression within this vessel that I've incarnated into. But how can I transform my relationship to that fear? What do I actually need? Okay, let's hold space for it and accept it. It's not in our inability to accept something, because the only thing that dissolves it is unconditional love, which is wholly accepting it no matter what it is, and no matter what it is that we're moving through. When, again, it's not about something that you should have overcome, it's something that you actually succumb to, for you are here in this realm to feel the full range of human emotion, yet begin to observe and extract the information from the frequency of that emotion. When this card comes to you, know that it's confirmation that you're walking the path of light and responding to pre-incarnation soul contracts to make a difference on the planet. It's also a sign that you have an opportunity to sever connections to fears and limitations. So this is the moment that you begin to observe the one that is fearing and the one that believes that they are limited in the system. And that's an octave within you that does the best with the information that it has. And the moment that you realize that you are not the fear itself, but you are the awareness behind it, you are free. Okay, so energetic cords bind us to situations, loved ones, and even the past, but you're in a transition now and detaching from unnecessary connections, dramas, and fears. Know that there will be a great severing at this time, and you may feel isolated for a moment as you'll be reconfiguring your circle. So this is all transformations with the physical realm of trust and moving into a life that is in greater alignment with your highest good. Know that the cords that bind you to loved ones and soul family will remain intact. It's only lower vibrational connections that are being severed. Expect breakthroughs and doors of opportunity opening for you. If you feel strongly connected to Archangel Michael, know that his energy is with you now. And that is alchemy. It's transforming your relationship to the emotion, because realization that this is a temporal emotion, this is a temporal sensation and experience to the eternal being, is the meaning of life. It's to be able to experience the totality of contrast while also being seated in the position of the void, right? Existing simultaneously and nothing. To be able to feel everything and be so immersed in the system while still seeing the illusion clearly for what it is, and saying, what a beautiful thing that I can experience limitations and fears just to be able to overcome them by recognizing that it's not the whole of me, it's just a localized aspect. And that's it exactly. It's realizing that this moment happening in your life right now is a moment in eternity. And that is the meaning of life, because you remember that you originate and branch far beyond the system. And that's the eternal aspect of what it is you're doing within this temporal experience. Okay, so let's get a message for you, because I do want this to just be a standalone message, but we are definitely going to pull something for you. When you're here, high heart activation, to see life through the lens of the heart. This came up a lot for me in ceremony recently, where, Gaia kept saying, and the universe kept saying, Pachamama, Mother Earth, and the Mother of the universe, see life through the heart. Then you'll see the universe is one single being. To see life through the heart is to understand your interconnectedness to all things and being deeply connected to yourself as you move through this system. And that's what this is. In order to access feeling safe and secure, we must understand that we are not separate from each other. There is only an illusion of separation. And not everything has to look like light for it to be light. For source is in everything. Whether a fractal of awareness is conscious of the fact that it's infinite potential doesn't negate the fact that it's still infinite potential, and that includes you, or moments in which you had doubted your own divinity. So this is the moment of recognizing and remembering your interconnect, because look, we have Heart of Source at the base, right? Of course we do. Heart of Source encompassing love, unconditional love, and serenity. And that is unconditional love. There's actually something that I wrote yesterday about unconditional love, so I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. It says, unconditional love isn't about agreeing with someone, it's about seeing them clearly and accepting where they are in their process without needing them to be different for you to feel at peace. And that is also something that coexists within us. Two truths can exist simultaneously, and that is about our relationship with our own ego and the things in which, it will be subject to, incarnated into this realm, especially as there's certain planetary shifts within our solar system. They also bleed into our experience, not just energies that surround us, but energies that quite literally move through us. And so this is something in which we're always experiencing, expressing, but emotional intelligence is what allows the ability to understand that people act from where they've lived, what they've learned, and what they haven't yet healed. And the ego is showing you exactly right. Your body is showing you where your fear is, your deepest work is, the things in which your soul came here to experience and to overcome by not over-identifying with, because from that place, you don't react. Instead, you respond from a level of awareness, okay, from a place of awareness. So this is super interesting. You have the Heart of Source. To see life on earth through the lens of Source, we must see it through the heart space. And that's where we create from the crown. I also want to get one of these messages because these are super beautiful. Let's get one of these. Okay, we have two that flipped. How do I share my garden? Okay. How do you share your garden? And I'm seeing the garden of your mind. How do you share your mind with the world around you and the things in which you create with your mind? I'm seeing from mind to matter, from mind into matrix. How do you share? I'm hearing your thoughts and put them on display for the world to see. So I'm seeing as things that you actually create in this realm. How do you share your garden? How can you create within this garden that is the earth a conscious laboratory womb designed for soul expansion to experience itself through the physical form? Then you have, do I help and allow other to help me? Do you recognize that you are helping yourself in all things, in all expressions? And are you open to the many different ways that can manifest into your life? One thing we must remember, and I'm hearing that we cannot negate, is the fact. So this is not to discredit, not to discount all the ways in which abundance can show up for us. Sometimes the myopic, limited lens in which a very specific octave of us will see life through is, well, it didn't come in this way for me, so it's not going to come in. Sometimes it comes in through a messenger. Sometimes abundance comes through the form of an opportunity. It may come through a person that you meet. It may come through an experience that you have. We forget at times as we move through this existence the benefit of what it is that we may be currently moving through. We may not see it clearly until later down our continuum coordinates within space-time where more change happens. Clearly, oh, we went through that experience because it was how were we going to know then the value of the lesson that we would then be able to impart, the wisdom in which we would then be able to impart, and that becomes a form of enlightenment because we see ourselves as a light being. That's a hanged man moment where we look back at the ruins of our life and see it from the lens of the soul, and we actually understand the value of it because we're able to offer something of value to another light being that can assist them and hopefully make the journey easier for them. Saying something that maybe you wish someone else could have said to you back then, reminding them of something that you were yet to remember. And how can we also extend forgiveness and compassion to ourselves, to that version that would only learn the things that time was going to teach them, that had not yet learned the things that time would teach them, the remembrance that they would return to you. So at the base you have, do I give enough time to the processes of life? Have you really sat with it? The processes of life. Everything was a process. When we speak about when did your journey begin, it's always a spherical model. How did you come back into this seat of remembrance? It was a process. It was everything that connected to everything else. We can look back and see how the dots connected, but we cannot look forward yet and see how that will be a connecting point for us in this beautifully limited avatar. Solar corona. This is thanks to the light. Light is also a form of information that comes forth thanks to an eclipse. So it's something that we previously couldn't see, and with energy, we then begin to see and transform our relationship with. And energy is actually a really important and positive card because it talks about the transformation to our relationship with our stories that have played out, the experiences, because it led back to the one desire that we have moving through this construct. And that comes down to the desire to remember ourselves while being immersed within the illusion of separation, to see your interconnectedness to all things very clearly. So with that being said, that includes guides, that includes entities and beings within your field, many different subdivisions of source that has fractalized itself into infinite expressions to be able to experience itself. So I'm gonna love any of you right there. If you're already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing because we'd love to have you around. Personal reading details are also down below. And yeah, also exciting announcement. I have opened up live one-to-one sessions now. So all readings were pre-recorded. I'm still offering pre-recorded readings. And now I'm also offering one-to-one live sessions. For those of you that want to work with me on that format, we have everything linked in the description box down below. And also check out Water Spirit if you're looking for some high quality AAA grade gemstones. Today I have carnelian, moonstone, and also I believe this is not rhodonite. It's not clear quartz. It's another pink one. I cannot even think of the name right now. I cannot process it. Kunzite. I'm wearing kunzite, which is a self-love stone as well. So I'll speak to you very soon. I trust that this information landed exactly as it needed to. Thank you for watching up until this point. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for the work that you do. It is an inspiration to me. And I'll speak to you very soon. Until next time. Bye. Oh, also let me know if you made it to this point. What guide has been significant for you at different times in your life? When did they come forward? What emotions or vibrations were you moving through? What themes were you moving through when you collapsed these waves into form? Let me know. I'm very interested to see how that manifested for you in your subjective journey. Another me. Until next time. Bye.